of a precious Saturday and joining us while we discuss a master's degree in management with you today at international universities. If you're already here, thank you for being on time. We'll let some of the other attendees join in as well, maybe give it a minute or two. In the meanwhile, if you're just feeling a little lazy and want to go ahead and grab a cup of coffee or something, please do that. And we'll start in exactly a couple of minutes from now. Hi, Rishabh. Nice seeing you here again. If you can put in the chat, in the Q&A box for me, what your undergraduate degree is, that would really help me curate the conversation to your specific undergrad degree. You can make it a lot more interactive that way. Thank you for sharing, Ria. Yes, BBA degree. Okay, excellent. So now I know how to curate the information specifically for you. The others who just joined in, if you could go ahead and put in the Q&A box what your undergrad degree is, then that will help me curate the conversation more specifically to your needs. My name is Tripti Singh. Some of you have been attending my webinar since the morning, so you kind of are familiar with me now. Some of you might get bored because some of the slides, especially towards the end, might be a little repetitive when I'm talking about the components and stuff. But nice to see the engaged audience who's repeating webinars today. We'll just give it another minute and then we'll start. Grab your coffee, grab your chai, grab your Coke if that's what you're feeling like drinking on a Indian summer at 3 p.m. today. All right. So again, thank you everyone for joining in. And today we're specifically going to talk about a master's in management. I represent the Red Pen. And we are over a decade old firm that believes in educational consulting done in the right fashion. We are completely bringing you unbiased, objective, the most updated information from all universities across the globe. Our strength truly lies in understanding your profile and understanding your fit when it comes to graduate schools and undergraduate schools and boarding schools and all of across the gamut of the educational landscape. Now, today we are going to spend time talking about a master's in management specifically. If there's anybody in my audience today who's looking at a PhD in management, then in the Q&A box, I would love to speak with you a little further once we get to the Q&A section of the webinar. When I meet applicants, and I've been meeting applicants for grad school for like almost 17 years now, and when I meet applicants who have a BCom or a BBA, and they come out, specifically those candidates, when they come in, they talk to me about doing an MBA, I really feel the need for a session like this, because here is me telling you the gospel truth. That is, a master's in business administration is a work experience-based degree. I repeat, a master's in business administration is a work experience-based degree, which is available at all leading institutions across the globe for people who have at least 4 to 5 years of work experience. In fact, some of the leading business schools that you have potentially heard of, think Harvard, think Berkeley, think Columbia, any of these, London Business School, Oxford, they are really, really pitching for candidates to have 7 years of work experience, 8 sometimes minimum. All right. So what we are instead going to talk about today is a master's in management, which is something that you can gain immediately after an undergraduate degree. It does not have the work experience requirement, and I will touch upon that momentarily. So what is a master's in management, right? A master's in management is basically a degree that combines in itself the general management concepts and the soft skills that you need to lead and create an impact in the world of management. So the leadership, the impact-driven decision-making, the strategic decision-making, all of those skill sets are taught to you in a general degree, but without the work experience cap. All right, that's a master's in management. Now, there is an association called the SEMS, and the SEMS actually curates a list of the most competitive MIM programs in the world, and you can just visit their website and you'll get a really good idea about which are these leading business schools that offer a master's in management. Not all business schools, specifically North America, offer masters in management, because masters in management is it's a concept born out of Europe and Britain. It's a very demand and supply thing, giving young leaders the opportunities is a thought that came out of Europe and Britain. So which is why Europe and Britain does MIM the best. There are, of course, some amazing programs in the US as well. University of Southern California, Babson, Northwestern, they have amazing management programs without work experience requirement. These are not MBAs, these are MIMs. Canada has some of them as well. But inherently, you'll find the leading schools are out of Europe and the United Kingdom. Australia also has some MIM programs that you can consider, right? So when we look at an MIM program, what are you going to study? You're going to study business ethics, you're going to study operations, supply chain, human resource, marketing, finance, accounting, entrepreneurship, management, technology, management information systems, financial management. So you're going to study all the core modules that you would typically study in an MBA class, but this is without the work experience requirement. Now, some of you, like Ria, who comes from a bachelor's in business administration background, you're going to be looking at this slide and saying, hey, 1 minute, I covered a lot of this in my undergrad. Yes, you did. And which is why, Ria, you are not a suitable candidate for master's in management, because you already have an undergraduate degree in master's in management, which is why a school that offers master's in management will not find you a good fit. In fact, a master's in management is a program built to give managerial skill sets to people who come from a non-management background. Think BA Psychology, BSc Mathematics, Engineering, BTech, BVoc in Computer Science or IT, BA Literature, Mass Media, Advertising, specialization in marketing honors or finance honors, who has not spent the 3 years of the undergraduate journey studying general management. Those are the candidates who are a good fit for this program. All right. So please look at this slide, take a picture if you like, and then think about, go back to your transcript, go back to your course curriculum of 3 years and identify for yourself whether have you covered these modules. And if yes, if you've covered 60-70% of these, then you are overqualified for a master's in management. Another criteria that I want to share with you is anybody here with 1 year work experience who's going to by 2023 have 2 years work experience. By the time they start grad school, it's okay. You're still a good fit in for an MIM if you come from a non-management background. But if you are 2 years running into your work right now, you graduated in 2020, you have 2 years work now. By 2023, you'll have 3 years work experience. You're overqualified for masters in management. Some schools might still be willing to look at your application, but most competitive universities want you to have between 0 to 2 years work experience. That is their requirement of you. They want the young professionals, the fresh graduates, and they want you without an understanding of management so that they can teach you management concepts and ideologies. All right. So if there are any questions about this, happy to answer them for you in the Q&A section, put them in the box. When we compare it with an MBA, okay, this is just to clarify any doubts that you might have. All right. Typically, an MBA grad and an MIM grad would be aligned for the same job roles, whether it's consulting or head of strategy teams. It would be the same for you. There would be two key differences. One, you are going in without WorkX. So when you are graduating ahead, your pay scale might be slightly less simply because you don't want to carry with you the work experience that an MBA does. Half a decade of work, 7 years of work experience plus an MBA equals a higher pay scale. An MIM degree, but barely any work experience will not get you the same pay scale. So you'll start at a lower level, but you will start towards in the same teams and the same roles. All right. The second difference is the price. An MBA is definitely more expensive. An MBA carries with itself some kind of a vetting, if I can tell you that, so which is why the price point is higher. So if a Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management is offering a master's in management studies and they're offering an MBA, chances are the MBA is a much higher price ticket than a master's. All right. Now, if I can explain this to you a little bit, all right. When you go into an MBA classroom, predominantly the style of studying is very case study. There's no set textbook. There's really no set syllabus or curriculum that they are going into. The class is made up and curated and moves forward via the experiences of the people in the class. All right. For people who come from management background who are currently attending my session today, think human resources. All right. There's a concept called burnout. Now, if you're sitting in an MBA class and you have never come across burnout or you just studied it theoretically versus the case study model they're talking about is how this one major labor issue happened in the Audi factory set up in Shanghai because of severe burnout levels. There are professionals there with minimum half a decade of work experience talking about their burnout journeys, discussing case studies from their real life stories or from the companies that they've been working at. Right? So they're discussing burnout as a concept from their own experiences of burnout versus you, fresh graduate, sitting in the class looking at the theoretical definition of burnout, because that's the only understanding that you have of burnout. Okay, I'm giving a really, really stupid, silly example, but I couldn't break it down any simpler for you. So an MIM class is a theoretical class. It's typically how you did your undergrad. You're going to go to a class, there are going to be lectures, there's going to be a prescribed syllabus. There are concepts you're going to be expected to understand. There'll be papers you'll be expected to write, projects you'll be expected to do, network in campus, network off class, within the classroom, outside the classroom, build an alumni setup for yourself. But in an MBA class, it's more about the class curating the classroom experience. It's not led by the lecturer per se. All right, which is why an MBA for a fresh graduate is not a great idea. Okay, so again, snapshot worthy slide. If you want to take a screenshot, please go ahead and take it. Now, I have left a note below about GMAT or GRE. A GMAT is a graduate management aptitude test. So most business schools accept the GMAT. Most business schools also nowadays in the United States, in Canada, and some of them in the UK have started willingly accepting the GRE. So there's no differentiation between that. Some business schools in Europe still prefer the GMAT for an MIM. So bear that in mind. Okay. And if you honestly come from a really strong quant background, like you're an engineering grad or you're an economics grad and you have solid econometrics and stuff, you might want to give the GRE if all the colleges in your shortlist accept the GRE, simply because you want to showcase that, look, I have the quant, you can see my transcripts, but I also have strong verbal because the GRE verbal section is strong, right? But say you're coming from a psych background, or you're coming from a philosophy background, or political science or literature background, and you're looking at an MIM or a design background, and your quant hasn't been that heavy and you're more comfortable with the GRE because of the verbal section, consider giving the GMAT, because your transcripts showcase, and you will give an English exam as well. So you will be able to showcase your English acumen. But the GMAT will be a great place for you to show your quantitative skill sets as well, which is a slightly tougher, a more complex system of testing your quantitative rigor. All right. So this in a nutshell is the comparison between an MIM and MBA. And I also spoke to you a little bit about the exam strategies. Let's move on. When we look at the trend, because very often the people ask, well, you know what, if I'm not going to earn as much, at least will I get job opportunities, right? And that's a fair ask. That's a really, really fair question, because you don't want to study a program that's not going to make you employable, right? And these are softer skills. It's not like you're learning Python and R++, you're not learning technical skills here. You're learning soft skills. So you want to make sure that your employment opportunities are tremendous. And we went to the direct source. We went to the company that hosts the GMAT exam, and this is the data that we pulled out from them, right? That there are very key roles out there for MIM graduates, and it's increasing. The demand is increasing every year. So that's great news coming out of the world of management, that they are very, very open to looking at masters in management candidates. Now, when we look at them here in the United States, when we look at an MIM grad, here are the opportunities you can look forward to. We've listed down the industries. So there's services, technology, manufacturing, finance, healthcare, consulting. But then here are the roles that you can look at. So even though you study general management, if you feel that you have a strong affinity towards marketing, you can work in as the head of a marketing team. You have the skills, you have the ability, just as much as an MBA does. It's just that you don't have the work experience that they bring to that next job. But you'll learn on the job and you'll get there. In fact, most often an MIM graduate, 4 years down the line, if they decide to apply for an MBA, they find it very hard to justify why they need a second management degree. Because they trust that you went to a good MIM school, you know management. So instead, why would you come back for a second management degree? Like a lot of time MBAs want a second MBA. It's hard to justify why you want a second management degree. Similarly with an MIM grad, right? If you have an MIM, you're akin to studying an MBA. It's just that you don't have the work experience. That's the only difference, right? So these are the statistics pulled out for the United States specifically. Let's look at what it means to study in the UK or in Europe. Again, this is the birthplace of masters in management. So you can see that the company names, the top recruiters are the best that you could ever consider getting when you're looking at a corporate side of job working, right? And I haven't even gone into looking at the not-for-profit sector, which also hires MIM in large numbers. So all of these students, getting into consulting and financial services and banking services, they are all getting fantastic job opportunities by choosing to study a management-related degree immediately after graduation instead of waiting for work experience and then doing an MBA. So there's an absolute opportunity for you out there to work, whether as a head of product, whether as a social media manager, entrepreneur as well. You have the opportunity to go ahead and create that impact right off the bat without having to wait for work experience. And that's where an MIM would come into your life, right? This is what it is. Instead, on the other hand, if you're thinking, I want to build technical skill sets in my work, in my profile as a professional, I do not have the technical skills that I wish to engage in as a subject matter expert, then an MIM is not the right degree for you. Right? Then you're considering a specialized master. So you're looking at something in finance or something specifically in marketing or something specifically like supply chain. That's the technical skill set building masters. And MIM is a general management degree, which opens up a lot of the doors when it comes to industry or roles for you. This is the Canada-based report. Now, we come back to the components section, right? Now, when we look at the components, a master's in management is offered by business schools, all right? So which means interviews are almost always going to happen for you, which means that you have to spend a lot of time knowing your narrative, understanding your goals, understanding your motivation, and being able to articulate it verbally as well as you've done it in your essays. So be very mindful of doing a solid interview prep. Now, the reason why I'm singling out interview prep here is because my previous webinar was entirely on resumes, which happened a couple of Saturdays ago. And then the one before that was entirely on all the components. I went into each component in details. So go ahead and go to our YouTube channel if you want to go visit those. But for now, I wanted to just talk about interview prep and let you know that it's almost always going to happen for you. Not all schools may interview all their candidates, but there are very high chances of you being interviewed across 4 or 5 schools of your list of 8 or 10 or 12. So please be mentally prepared to prep for the interview well, right? Besides interviews, I am going to talk to you a little bit about the statement of purpose today. When we look at a BCom graduate, okay, or when we look at a psychology graduate, or when we look at a sociology or a literature or an engineering graduate, Very often when we are working with them, when they are working with the red pen, we tell them, you have to write a strong technical statement of purpose, a strong technical personal statement. Personal statement is the verb that the word that they use in the UK and in Canada and in Singapore and Australia. In the United States, they call it statement of purpose. So I'm just going to use it interchangeably. So when you're looking at an SOP, and when we're looking at subject-specific masters in counseling psychology, masters in chemical engineering, masters in financial analysis. So we talk to them a lot about making it technically sound, talking a lot about what technical skills you have, what technical knowledge you have about that space, about your area of interest. When it comes to a management degree, sure, you could have some technical knowledge and skill sets that you may want to talk about. But for you, what is very, very important is that you showcase leadership, you showcase impact, you showcase collaboration, you showcase that you have the making of a great manager. You have the workings of somebody who is able to leave emotions aside and only focus on the facts, and that makes you a great leader. Okay, so talking about failures, talking about achievements, talking about how you got to achieve what you got to achieve, talking about what you learned after you failed and how you have worked on resolving that issue. Those are the key elements of your statement of purpose. There has to be managerial success stories built into your SOP so that an admission officer can see that you're going to be successful at their school and you're going to be successful after you graduate from their school in the real world as a professional. All right, that's very important for your essay. Now, when we understand that this is the purpose of my statement of purpose, right, then any element of your experiences from college and above, nothing below college, first year onwards, now that you've grown up and you've matured and your goals are almost always just getting more refined instead of just constantly changing, right? That's when college, that really happens when college begins. So that's why everything first year onwards that aligns with this element of your story, this element of impact and leadership and future success is what you're going to mention in your SOP. Okay, that's the purpose of your SOP. The purpose of the SOP is not your whole journey from day 0 to now. Okay, it's not about how you're this really empathic person who loves to stand in the kitchen and cook with the mother while also standing in the garage and fixing the car with the father and takes the grandfather to the cricket match because it reminds him of his youth. That's fantastic for an essay that comes about, tell us about yourself that is not available in the application. Or another essay that says 25 facts about you nobody knows. All right. But for your SOP, anything from first year college onwards that aligns with the person that you are today and your goals and your aspirations and your failures and your successes is what is going to find its place. Okay. Now, universities out there, they give you word limits. The more competitive the university, the more they'll challenge you with making it a complex prompt. Prompt is the question, we call it, technically speaking, we call the question that they ask about the SOP, the prompt. So the essay prompt, right? So whatever they've asked you in the essay prompt, sometimes will have limitations on them. 1200 word limit, 250 word limit, double space, single space, 10 size font, 12 size, not more than one page. They will mention that. You must make a note of it and adhere to it for that university. In fact, I'm going to go a step ahead and tell you that if your word limit is 850 words and you have a 600 word really solid story, don't spend that 150 extra words just putting in random content and make it a creative writing essay. Don't do it, because as an admission officer, when it's peak season time, I am reading too many essays and you're just not giving me the best reading experience. I want to know up front and center, what are your motivations and what are your aspirations and what are you going to do after you graduate? I don't want to have to read a whole thesis and then come to it at the bottom, right? So make sure that you adhere to the format, single space, PDF, all of whatever is mentioned, and you follow it through. If there are no specifications given, 10, 11 size font, Arial or Times New Roman or sans serif, anything which is sans serif in nature, basically, one pager, which is typically 1200 words. 1000 to 1200 words is what we advise our applicants who do not have any specific prompt requirements in their form. Now, when you're putting all this narrative down, your story down, Sometimes you will tend to try and use words that are complex, vocabulary that is intense or very robust, or a mouthful, if I can call it that. Or you might get into too much technical detail. You've lost me as a reader. Because very often your admission officer is not coming from the same background that you are applying towards, right? So if you're going to get into the intricacies of MATLAB and how that management processing system works, you've lost me as a layman. So you want to make sure that while your story is interesting and capturing, not creative writing, but interesting from the flow of it, at least it's easy to understand and read as a reader. You're making my reading experience wholesome if you're doing that, right? Also, when you're saying, especially as a young graduate, because like I said, MIM is for people with 0 to 2 years work ex. As a fresh graduate, if you're going to apply and your story is predominantly going to be aspirational in nature. I aspire to, I hope to, I desire to, I wish to. But that wish cannot be isolated wish. It has to come from a deep sense of understanding what your knowledge gaps are or what your realizations are. So those have to be backed by examples in your essay, right? You did a project, you failed at it, or your friends were counting on you for something as the captain of the club and you failed, you were not able to lead. And that made you realize that, as a leader, you have a long way to go. And then therefore you started working towards it already through X and Y ways. But a graduate degree will help you create that connection with the real world. And in other professionals, you will not fail, right? So you're giving me enough information to be able to gauge that, what, this person is coming with an aspiration, but it's coming from a very strong place of knowing what their needs are, what their goals are, and how this degree will connect them to their goals. All right. Also, definitely get your essay read by a third person, right? Now, this third person, if it is your parent or your kaka, masa, uncle, aunt, brother, sister, jija, bhabhi, make sure that you don't get stressed out if they bring out to you that, what, this doesn't really talk about you as a person per se. Yes, that is true, because this is not the place for that. Your SOP is a place for your technically sound narrative, which aligns to the program of study. All right. If you're talking about being extremely disciplined and focused and you're extremely detail oriented, right? And you say that, well, my strong decade-long training in squash has built in me this level of focus that I bring to the workforce. That's fine. That's fantastic. That's an element of your personal life that can come into the essay. But if there is no connection like that, then don't do it. Don't build it in deliberately, which just breaks the flow and leaves a question in the reader's head. Well, what am I going to do with this set of information? Because your extracurriculars, which are ongoing, college onwards, currently ongoing, should be in the resume regardless. Some of the forms also give you place to write your extracurricular activities and articulate them. Your SOP is not the place, therefore, to list them out. Right? And if you've been a Kathak dancer from age 5 to now age 25, great, it goes in your resume. But if you were a Kathak dancer from age 5 to age 15 and then you stopped, it doesn't find place in your resume. All right? Okay. Now, when you do give your essay to a third person to read, make sure that person doesn't really mostly from a management background, simply because then they'll be able to catch the jargons. They'll be able to say that, oh, you know what, you've written a lot of this technical stuff, but I don't understand it. And that's a good catch, right? In fact, that's a strategy that we use at the Red Pen quite a bit, right? Because there's a content specialist who's working with the applicant and who has a very deep understanding of the story because they've helped them build the strategies around the story. So when the essay is in a good space, that content specialist will give it to a colleague, another content specialist, and say, hey, can you do a blind read for me? So because that content specialist has zero idea about this applicant story, so they'll be able to identify the gaps. And that's critical, right? So that's another one thing that I wanted to tell you. Also, when you're using abbreviations or when you're using things that are very culturally local to you, right? You have to give it to somebody else who will be able to point that out for you, right? For example, if I say, and then he played gully cricket. Well, gully cricket is something that maybe a British university admission officer may understand or an Australian one may. I'm not so sure that a Singaporean admission officer or an American or a Canadian admission officer will be like, oh, I know gully cricket. He'll be like, oh, what was he playing? What cricket? Right? My bua came running in. Well, I know what a bua is, but unless your admission officer is of Indian origin and is familiar with the Hindi language, they'll not know bua came running in, right? So it's okay to say aunt came running in, right? Or if you say, well, I sat for the state entrance exams, and then you're giving me an abbreviation about the state entrance exam, that's lost on me. Because if it's the Maharashtra CET, MHCET, only Maharashtrian students who have domicile in Maharashtra who are aware of what MHCET is. If any of you are right now from Maharashtra, do you know what the Chennai CET is called? The one in Tamil Nadu? I don't know. Is it TNCET? I don't know. You understand? It's very culturally appropriate to you. So just saying state level entrance exam is explanation enough. You don't need to go into the second bit of it, right? Those are the things that your blind reader helps you identify and really make your essay transverse borders, if I can put it like that, right? Finally, you are going to graduate school. You're all adults here today. There is no room for grammatical errors in your essay. By all means, use British English, even though you're applying to a US college, be consistent. If you're using American spellings, analyze with a Z, then you specialize with a Z as well. All right. Just be consistent, be grammatically accurate. There is no room for you to have made basic errors, because that's the least that you can give as an admission officer who's reading so many essays. You can give your best foot forward. That's the least they expect from you. All right. Okay, going forth, here is an example of a good introduction to a management-related essay and a reasonably not so good introduction. It's a great first draft, don't get me wrong, right? In a first draft introduction, if it starts with a little bit of a backstory about family business, the environment, the people, the culture made me enjoy the work, but also have a responsibility towards my family business, and to build over the strong base my father and mother have built by tapping and capturing overseas markets. I'm striving for international exposure, interacting with new people. It's a great first draft introduction para. You eventually have to crispen it and bring a lot of thought and impact into those sentences. Right? My family's jewelry manufacturing business is popular in the diamond trading sector for its whatever, a third generation entrepreneur. I carry the responsibility of the company's future, implementing new age production technologies and international collaborations. I realize this right from my initial interactions. Though the task seems daunting, my experiences are strategically incorporated the various industrial and decision-making skills required to excel. No place for mother and father here. This is not about mother and father or your ode or the revelry that you hold for them because if they've done this amazing work and now it's your responsibility. It's a fantastic emotion. Unfortunately, it cannot be captured in your final draft because the final draft is a lot about your realizations, right? And what you bring as a mature candidate for this program, right? Which is why there's a little bit of a difference here. If anybody feels that in fact the second introduction can be even better, I would love to hear that in the Q&A section. We can always discuss it. All right, moving forth. How would you, as a fresh graduate, ensure that you are in fact the one who's considered for an admit at a very reputed university versus say another candidate with a very similar profile? You've all both gone to college, you've both got fantastic GPAs, assuming you both got fantastic GMAT scores as well, 740s on all around. So then what's going to really differ between you and the next candidate? It's going to be your intellectual curiosity. Okay. Have you taken the initiative to lead clubs on college? There were opportunities available in college. Did you avail of those opportunities? Did you grab them with both hands? There were no clubs. Did you initiate any? Did you take initiative? Were you proactive about it? Right? Did you lead any intercollegiate festivals? Did you lead any events in college, a hackathon, a journalism club, a newsletter program, an allies group to discuss awareness about LGBTQ community? Where is your intellectual curiosity about being a leader? What are you reading when it is related to management? Are you reading the Economics Times? Are you reading the New York Times? Are you reading all the Harvard Business Reviews that come out about companies and what impact these companies are creating in the world? Do you know the new sustainability laws in our economy versus another economy? Do you know the rules around electric vehicles, which is like the new buzz thing, right, in the world? So Are you reading enough about management, thought, and leadership? Even in the fiction world, are you reading books written by people who have a background in management so you get an insight into what managerial successes look like? Malcolm Gladwell, Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, Who Moved My Cheese. Are you reading books that introduce to you in a pop psychology manner the nuances of what management success feels like and needs to be like? Are you reading autobiographies, Elon Musk, Phil Knight, understanding how these thought leaders are leading us into the future of corporate world? What are some of the projects you've undertaken? Have you led a marketing campaign for, say, that aunt of yours who does homemade cookie business? That's a self-initiated project. You don't need anybody else to do it for you. You can just go ahead, talk to your aunt and say, hey, I am interested in helping you grow with your business. Tell me what your idea is and let's see if we can get you more eyeballs on Instagram. And then you put a digital campaign together, but you don't know how to run a digital marketing campaign. So you learn on an online platform. You don't have to pay money for it. You don't need a certification. You're doing it for yourself. So then you gather that knowledge and then you apply it to your aunt and you create a proposal and then she signs off on it and then you run the campaign for them and then you track and you analyze how many likes did we get in the first week, which post got the most likes, what were the numbers, what were the regions that these posts were coming from. And you failed. You were not able to get more than 100 likes in 7 months. That's fine. You tried. You tried to succeed. And with every failure, you learned one new thing about yourself and about why you need a master's degree in management. That's what's important. That's what sets you apart. As a fresh graduate, you must have intellectual curiosity, which is not limited to just the textbooks prescribed by your college or in your space, if you have like marketing or psychology or engineering or whatever. Work, and ideally work in a smaller company, which really gives you jobs to do, which makes you run around trying to finish projects. It's tiring, it's annoying, because all your friends are hanging out, going to Goa, somebody's traveling together to Spain for a week, and you're stuck in this internship where they're making you work so hard. It's not even like it's a great brand name, so you get all frustrated, but that's okay. Because the more your hands get dirty, the more stories come out of what you know that you want to do once you have that graduate degree. You go to a really big company, they'll just make you do PowerPoint decks. And that's not your future. You know what I mean? So the smaller the company for an internship, the better. You get to do more, you get to learn more. You are encouraged to ask questions because there are people who have time to answer questions.
Sorry, could you say that?
Oops. Okay. Now, this brings me to where do you start your college research, right? If any of you are in your third year and you're seriously considering applying for a master's in management, you need to start your college research now. All right. Because anyway, you won't find too many options in the US and Canada. And then you can decide whether you really want to consider them and wait for another year, do your 16th year and then go. Or would you rather just apply to UK, Europe and to those some colleges in the US that take you with a 3-year degree, right? But I've given you some leads, some excellent programs to consider, some great programs, great business schools to say, well, if this is on my list and I get into one of these, I know I've done a really brilliant job of my application and I'll be happy to study my management master's degree here. Again, screenshot worthy slide. Go ahead and take a screenshot. I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to start your college research, which is where this slide was born, that thought. So go ahead and start your research. These may be colleges you've never heard of. That's fine. Go research it and then you will find out for yourself that there are actually amazing universities out there beyond the ones that just make their names to India that are actually competitive, because it's hard to get into some of these, but really worth considering. Truly worth considering. Okay, and with that, I am going to now open the floor for question and answers. Anybody who has any questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box and I'm happy to answer them for you. Thank you, Rishabh, for your recommendation. Much appreciated. We have some new names I haven't seen in the last couple of webinars. Ariana, Ashni, would you guys have any questions? I'd be happy to answer them for you. Okay, Ariana, like what is the competitive GPA coming from a European university? Ariana, look, when we talk about you applying for a master's in management, whether to European or British universities, there is a minimum entry requirement. All right. Now, the more competitive the university, like London Business School Masters in Management or London School of Economics or HEC Paris or INSEAD, then you're looking at a high first class degree, which basically means that your GPA needs to be above 3.5, 3.6 sometimes to be even make it to the minimum entry requirement, right? But your entire list is not going to be made of only dream colleges, right? You're going to have some dreams, some targets, and safeties. So you're going to have to check your minimum entry requirement for these colleges and then make that list more robust and balanced. I hope that answers your question, Ariana. Samaksh, do you have any questions?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for this session. Actually, I got locked out in the middle because there's a internet connectivity problem in Rajasthan. But yes, I actually wanted to request you for the recording of Masters in Finance
It's
session
already
that
on
we had.
YouTube. It's already
It's on
there on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Oh,
It's
great.
already been
I'll just watch it. Thank you so much for this
uploaded.
session. Yeah.
Not at all, Samaksh. Ariana, I think you're in a brilliant program, first and foremost. So congratulations on getting an admit to University of Amsterdam in the first place. The communication science program there is fantastic. And yes, having a comsci degree, communication science degree, makes you a perfect candidate for an MIA. It absolutely does. You are definitely not wrong in considering masters in management. Go ahead, start your college research, get your resume in place, start attending some of the webinars. I know London Business School is going to soon start their webinar series. And then September, the forms will start opening and your recommendations will be in place. And then you can start working on your essays. December, hit submit. Enjoy Christmas thereafter. Quick nutshell timeline for you. But all the best, Ariana. All right. And with this, I'm going to end the session. I do want to let everybody know that we have another webinar coming up next Saturday where applicants are going to talk to you about their journey, right? And they're going to talk to you about what they did right, why they got the amazing admits they think they did, and what went wrong, what was the toughest part of the application, and what advice they have for you. And in fact, Ariana, there's somebody there who's going for a master's in entrepreneurship. And she herself was wondering about masters in management and entrepreneurship. So, I mean, might be a great platform to learn about entrepreneurship and innovation as well. Something that I didn't cover today. But go ahead, sign up for that webinar if you'd be interested in listening directly from applicants who've gotten amazing admits this year. On that note, I have one question, final question I'm going to take. During your bachelor's in DU, you'd held two leadership positions, cultural president, student union, as a joint secretary of student political party. Is it good to show association? It doesn't matter, Rishabh. Honestly, be authentic. Look, if your student political party has an association with an actual government political party, it is what it is. You have to talk about your authentic goals for studying that program, right? And if the goal is, well, I want to lead the party eventually, then that's your goal, right? If you're going to bring in your political subjective point of view, that may not be okay because you don't know whether the person who's reading it is left or right or middle or whatever. So you don't want to open yourself up to subjective judgment, right? But it's a great place for you to share that, okay, well, this is my goal. And if that is your goal, and if that's not your goal, then in your resume, the fact that you are part of a student political party is just the fact that you're a part of a student political party. Nothing more, nothing less. It'll be more about how you've led, the kind of work you've done, what have been your learnings, what have been your realizations. Those are the things that will come in the essay. And those are more important, your experiences, Rishabh. I hope that answers your question. All right. Thank you, each and every one of you, for attending today. I know Saturdays are damn precious, and Saturdays are a day where you just want to hang loose and chill out and not have to think about your future stressors. But the whole point of this session was to not stress you out, to cut down the stress and let you know that, hey, if you're thinking of MIM, here are the things to think about. Break it down, do it right, all the very best to each and every one of you. Thank you for attending today.